This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. Now we'll hear some music from the rapper and composer Dessa. She got her start in the Minneapolis hip-hop collective Doomtree. Since then, she's brought her artistic sensibilities to some very different kinds of projects. She's performed with the Minnesota Orchestra. She's on the Hamilton Mixtape. She's also been an artist in residence at Georgetown University. And recently, she put out a new EP called Tough Call Camelot. She came to WNYC to share some of that music in our performance studio. She began with a song called Camelot. Let's listen.
Cheap gas, broadband, wheatgrass, news cleanse, OnlyFans. Bourgeoisie is bourgeois do. That's bourgeois me and bourgeois you. That technocrat has a funny salute. Might not meet the burden of proof, but too rich to refuse. A Q Fahrenheit 452. All health and wellness, but just for self. And the little selflet's got a moral mandate to try to get rich, to stack the pancakes or back up your plate for me and my kids. Us. All fools for the pyrite. They get a hole in the roof for a skylight. Season recap, go get caught up. Now streaming White Lotus, Gaza. Welcome to Camelot. Don't wake up, baby. None of the lights turn off. Keeps us all neighborhood. It gets noisy at night, but if you've nothing to hide, you should sleep through and fight. Think tank, go fish. Dunk tank, Yuri. Next act is a spray tan and a flashbang and the First Amendment and a burn bag. Can't risk it, wish I could. But tell you what, let me knock on wood, and if the guardrails hold up like they should, we should all be double plus good. Welcome to Camelot, don't wake the baby. None of the lights turn off, keeps us on neighborhood. It gets noisy at night, but if you've nothing to hide, you should sleep through and fight. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Don't look back at those behind. Welcome to Camelot, asleep in a ballad box. Make a plaster cast of my conscience, just for posterity. All the coins in my pockets banging, telltale tambourine. Creature comforts, who amongst us wouldn't want what the rich man does? But that's the thing about the lap of luxury. The lap of luxury can't stand up. Welcome to Camelot. Bourgeoisie is bourgeois do. That's bourgeois me and bourgeois you. Too sad to watch, too cold to march. Sweet, sad and talked. No Joe, no art.
That was Camelot from Dessa, live in WNYC's studio. The song comes from the new EP. When did you write that track?
Yeah, I wrote it in 2025. So, I grew up in Minneapolis, and it was before the ICE presence began in Minneapolis. Yeah.
I was wondering, did you write it because it was the way you were feeling, or did you write it for the people who needed to hear it?
I haven't written too many political songs throughout my career, but I know that I don't like being lectured. And I really wanted to try to write a political song where I was a member of the group that could use some changing too. So for me, like using words like I and we were really important instead of like, let me tell you how it is and how you gotta be. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I did write it in response to the, the news that we're all seeing and feeling a lot of times totally overwhelmed by and uncertain how to react.
What was the hardest part of that song to write?
Ooh, I was a little bit afraid just because of the way that we communicate online, that including a line overtly about Gaza would be tricky. And by tricky, I mean, I was afraid to read the comments. I was also afraid to read the DMs.
Yeah.
you know. But I think for the most part, people have been really receptive. Yeah. Overall.
Well, I think the juxtaposition of White Lotus next to Gaza is really in the song. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just
Right?
like, yes, exactly. And I think, I think it was in part like, when initially Trump had posted like an AI generated visual image of like the new resort that Gaza would become, and that feeling of like, you're spinning out and yelling back at the radio, So
Hope you're not yelling at us. When did you write the rest of the songs on the EP?
So I wrote them pretty quickly back to back. This is my first venture as a producer, where I produced, but both of the tracks fully, with some help from friends at home, Laserbeak and Andy Thompson. So yeah, pretty close, back to back. I went to South Africa, worked with some friends there, who initially I had planned to tour with, but were denied visas by the State Department. And so I was able to do some field recordings there of the guitar line that's featured, in one of the tracks on the record.
That's interesting. Do you usually write songs back to back like that?
I mean, I'm so slow, Allison. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you're imagining back to back, spread that out over like many pages of the calendar.
I'm laughing because the rest of the band is laughing as well.
I don't have to look left and right to feel them clowning me. 100%. Yeah.
There was an essay that you wrote in Mother Jones about the protests in Minneapolis. You live there now. And there were 6 years between 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement and 2026 and the ICE raids. What stood out to you between the two eras of protest, the 2020 protests and the 2026 protests?
I think to me, when you read history books and you try to like cut and paste yourself into a major pivot point in history, it just seems so much cleaner. Like there are two sides and you pick one. And I think in reality is wildly confusing. Do you know what I mean? That's part of it. Like information is flying left and right. You're not sure what to believe or who are your trusted sources. So for me, I think those two periods of like experience and now history, legitimate history, in Minneapolis were really defined by the kind of connections that neighbors made. So like in addition to the major news sources, it's like, okay, who are the like local neighborhood papers? Who's the person who's going to run neighborhood watch, essentially? As you probably know, everybody's handing out 3D printed whistles, but it was just as important to like learn the name of that lady down the hall that I've like lived next to for 6 years, but haven't ever just like knocked on the door. And I think making those connections are what allowed Minneapolis to resist in the way that it did, because it really was, I think The Atlantic described it not just like as leaderless, but leaderful, where it's just like, hey, block by block, building by building, people were really mounting an impressive resistance to wildly overarmed federal agents with very little trigger discipline.
Why do you think it happened in Minneapolis?
Allison, if you and I were talking off air, I'll say this. I want to make room for people of all kind of political stripes. No matter what you think about immigration, this ain't the way to do it.
Right.
Full stop. Right? So no matter what your concerns are, this isn't the solution. That said, I think that there's a strong argument to be made that Trump personally had an axe to grind with our governor, Tim Walz, right, who had been like pretty well liked as a vice presidential candidate. And we're a crazy blue city, right? So I think that there was an opportunity there to send a message. And I think that Minneapolis said, nah, message not received, like return to sender.
Why did you go ahead and write that essay for Mother Jones?
I wrote it in part because I think that like the surreality, if that's a word, of how it felt on the ground was hard to communicate by visitors to our city. So when Joshua Williams is here playing keyboard with me, and he texted me right away when things started popping off, like, do you have people who need groceries? I got it. I'm running, I'm running out. Tell me what errands I can run. It was such like a text-based friend resistance. And I think in some ways it's helpful to say like, hey, it's likely that another city will be in the same position. Yep. So best practices might be helpful to share. But also personally for me, like there's a sex shop who like turned into local neighborhood heroes because they collected so many donations. So they called their store, like their actual retail shop, they called it Diaper Mountain for a while because it was just taken over by, The sex shop isn't usually going to kick it with the Second Amendment folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not natural partners or friends, and they're not going to go grab beers. But when the threat was serious and sufficient, those people will become part of a shared resistance together. They're their compatriots, even if they're not their friends. And so to me, the biggest reminder was like, engage in conflict responsibly, because you will need to link arms with people who you don't like in serious scenarios. So
The last song we're going to hear is a throwback, Dixon's Girl. It came out in 2010. Do you remember your state of mind when you were writing this song?
Oh man, I was so green. I recorded this one so many times. I recorded it in my kitchen. I didn't understand soundproofing yet, so it was just like an echo chamber, you know. And I remember doing it, and a friend had helped to engineer it. Shout out Jessie Green, now a violinist occasionally with the Foo Fighters. She was pressing record. And it turned out bad like 8 times in a row, and I felt so embarrassed. And she went, honey, this is the job.
Yeah.
Now you know. Now that lousy take is over, we can start the next one. And that has stayed with me to this day.
Do I need to know who Dixon is before I hear the song?
You can't know who Dixon's is because I changed his name so as not to out him.
I see. All right, this is Dessa. She's going to perform Dixon's Girl. It's from her debut album, A Badly Broken Code. Dessa, take it away.
Thanks, Allison. Oh, someone taught your walls to talk, but if they ask me, I ain't heard a thing. Back to the wall, back to the ball, back to the giant board. Back to the wall, back to the ball, back to the giant board. Back to the wall, back to the ball, back to the giant board. Again. There was a snowstorm in Jackson when you and I met at a club called St. Sebastian's, but the sign said something different. I remember thinking that I didn't have a shot at Mississippi. Television told us which roads they were closing. There goes a rap show, and everybody knew you as the wife of a famous man. Everybody who knew said, there goes Dixon's girl again. Even the walls lean closer when she plays the piano real slow. Hadn't met too many women in this business that I really like. But you could hold a little liquor, you could hold a conversation, you could hold your own mic. And even that night I learned the truth about your man. You gotta be big to treat pretty girls bad. It's not much, but my money's on you. It's not much, but my money's on you. It's not much, but my money, not much, but my money, not much, but my money's on you. Well, I heard from the rest of the world you're in trouble. Bad news moves like fire that you fight on the phone. I'm too far away, my well-wishing can't touch you, but I think of you still more than you might suppose. Everybody wanna see you with your hair down, wanna hear you hit the high note, wanna know if they can get you for a little less. Girl, I know how the stones can fly. Had some hard goodbyes, call me up day and night, free drinks and bad advice. Thanks, WNYC.
That was rapper and composer Dessa. Her latest EP is called Tough Call, Camelot. On the way, singer-songwriter Briston Maroney talks about his recent album, Jimmy. We'll also hear him play some music. This is all of it.